Stand Up.
Hello, and welcome to a special episode of Stand Up, welcoming Christian Finnegan back to the program. It's been a few weeks since we caught up, and he is one of my favorite people to talk to about, well, almost anything, from life to events unfolding before our eyes. I always love to get the framing of my good friend Christian Finnegan. Of course, you should support him on Substack and subscribe to his very original, awesome newsletter. It's called New Music for Olds.substack.com. New Music for Olds. So if you're into music, and even if you're not necessarily like me, like you love listening to it, but you don't know anything about it, Christian is giving you new suggestions every week. Go subscribe right now. Also a bonus guest, because while I was talking to Christian Finnegan live on YouTube, Bill Boyle was watching and texted me, and we did this actually a couple weeks ago. So I said, hey, are you available to talk? And when I got done talking to Christian, I brought Boyle on, and man, it was great. I learned a lot. I loved his perspective, his view, and his insight, because he's a pretty well-informed guy. We had a great conversation. So Christian Finnegan and Bill Boyle special. How about that for a bonus? If you're not supporting me and the work we're doing here, patreon.com/Pete Dominic right now. All right, let's do it. And we're live.
For those of you listening on the podcast version, you missed Pete doing his best like stage manager, TV stage manager, and 3 and 2. And one. With the headset, you totally could be that guy. You absolutely could be that dude.
Needs a wraparound mic.
Yes, definitely needs a wraparound.
I wish I was a stage manager.
How are you, Peter?
I'm okay. I'm feeling okay, even though the world is chaotic. I'm trying to maintain my mental health hygiene, but it's been a tough week to watch all the images, the people being
it's just brutal. And the problem is, I mean, one of the gazillion problems is that this is either going to get really much worse, or the dam is going to break and people are going to start coming out against Trump, and it's like the whole thing will crumble. The problem is both of those scenarios look like right now. Do you know what I mean? That it's like it getting better and it getting worse look identical right now, which is a bad place to be in. Like, you know, I think we were talking, I don't know if we were talking recently about the frog in the pot of water, about things just getting increasingly just one little cut and one little thing or whatever. And so it's like, if we're ever going to avoid that fate, things kind of have to get bad quickly, so that
I've heard that a lot.
Wake up. But the problem is, when things get bad quickly, they get bad quickly.
I've heard that a lot. Yesterday, things got bad very quickly because something about Google's cloud was down and several of my apps weren't working. I was very upset by that. What if that were widespread?
I feel like, there's been, somebody wrote a book a few years ago about like a world where the internet goes down and what would happen to people.
I think I would probably survive pretty well because of my survival skills. I've got one of those knives that you put stuff in the handle.
Oh, wow. I didn't realize you were so prepared. I didn't realize you were a prepper.
Yeah, well, just all I have is that knife with a few matches and some fishing line in it, so I can cut anything I need. So Scott Galloway, who is always right about everything, he said, I think the worm is turned on Trump. And I don't know, there seems to be maybe some truth to that based on all of the things that are happening. I don't think that means that the loudest MAGA people are changing their allegiance. I always think it means that the people that weren't paying any attention to anything are suddenly like, what the hell's happening?
Yeah.
And getting out in the streets maybe and joining us.
Well, I've said variations of this in the past, so I apologize if I'm being redundant. But so much of what we call political discourse, or people promoting their side of things, is really people promoting their brand on social media. Brand is too corny of a word, but it's like people have this sort of avatar of themselves, and people feel a responsibility to defend that avatar, even when the facts on the street are going against them. So it's like, I think I've maybe said this before, but when Nixon went down, there was no social media, and I feel like people had space to just shut up about it. Like Nixon's
right.
Nixon's biggest supporters can just be like, "Hey, I wonder if the Yankees are playing." Do you know what I mean? That they could kind of like leave the battlefield.
Life
now,
moved differently, but now it's yesterday. Pick an event. I think probably you had an airplane crash in the morning, which was fucking horrific. And you had court rulings in the night, and a war started last night. Israel attacked Iran. And in between that, you had a United States senator tackled. And take any one of those events, but take the senator. Like, we all reacted to that in real time and had any number of all the emotions when we saw that man. And I think that's an example of what you're saying.
But what I'm saying though is that like the people who maybe on a personal level, maybe 30 years ago, may have been convinced to, hey, you know what? Maybe this Trump guy's bad news. Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I'm just not going to talk about politics for a while. And then the people who are like anti-Nixon people kind of jump to the forefront, and then the narrative gets started that Nixon was an embarrassment. The history as we know it currently.
Right
now, no one ever has a reason to leave the battlefield, because I'm not necessarily arguing in defense of Trump. I'm arguing in defense of myself, because I've spent the last 3 years posting shit about how great Trump is,
right?
And A, B, and C, and trans kids and sports and illegal immigrants and all that. And I still feel like I need to defend myself against that, because everyone is dunking on me online now. Like, and then when I say everyone, I'm talking about like, you're on Facebook, you have 5 friends from high school who are, who.
No, yeah. Well, I think the thing that probably more specific that I don't think you're involved in, but a lot of suburban communities around the country have, every community has a Facebook page, but I think it's different out here in the burbs, in the wastelands.
Next door.
Yeah, well, on Facebook, there's every community has a Facebook page named after the community that somebody started, and there's any number of people there, and that's where it happens. Likely, these are people they're neighbors. You might even see them at the grocery store or a school function, and that's exactly who you're talking about. There's a lot of that, and that helps people feel alive, and it helps support their ego, I guess. And it's a lot of men, I think.
But I feel like that makes people just dig in constantly. And obviously, especially with Trump, which is his quote unquote gift to the conservative, again, quote unquote movement, is to constantly double down, never see ground in any capacity, even once it gets absurd, which again, it's like served him well as a private businessman, because even if you aren't playing by the rules, even if you're a cheat, even if you're a liar, there are sort of institutions there that are kind of like bumpers, like in a bowling alley, to kind of keep you on the playing field. There are training wheels, essentially, that there are sort of parameters when you're a private citizen there. You can be a scumbag and the entire country won't fall apart because of one scumbag. But when you're running things, when you're the president, and that trickles down, and now no one is admitting fault for any reason.
Well, yeah, and this time around, there's so many more way worse scumbags in the highest position. And I don't know how to articulate it, because it's not like they weren't bad people the first time around. But I mean, these guys that are running shit now are overwhelmingly baddies, like real bad baddies. Like, you had to hit a woman to even get your application seen by the regime. It's I
really think that most people don't think the government actually does anything. They believe that the government exists solely to take their tax money and give it to poor people, and they don't believe that. And so I think when a lot of people, if they engage with politics at all, it is strictly as a kind of a whose mascot gets to win.
Yeah,
like what is. It's kind of more of a pop culture position than in people's minds than it is an actual functional position. That they think of like, well, what's the mood we're trying to set? Like, who's in charge? It's sort of who's at the top of the social hierarchy, and for 8 years it was Obama, and we were oppressed, and now Trump is on top. So therefore we are triumphant. And it has nothing to do with, is your garbage getting collected? Is, are your streets safer? Are your kids getting educated? It's purely just like that ego feeling of like, my team is at the top of the current hierarchy.
Really well explained. That's why we love talking to you, because you take a broader view of it, and it's not just an instant reaction. It's something that you think about because you spend a lot of your time just thinking.
Well, yeah, and I thank you. I appreciate that. I wish I didn't have the time to do that.
No, I like it. You do, and you share it with us, whatever you arrive at, and you're pretty plugged into what's going on, and obviously in the world and in New York. And I'm going to ask you about what's going on in New York with this election. Obviously, for the mayor, it's pretty interesting to watch and entertaining and very consequential for New Yorkers and arguably for the rest of the world, you might add. But let me save that, because I just want to get your take on how you've looked at and how you've seen and how you're dealing with what's happened specifically in California, but around the country with these mass deportations, which, by the way, it looks like Trump, at least rhetorically, said he's seemingly backing off on, because he just found out that they're not all rapists and murderers. Which is, something that was so horrifically awful and offensive when he came down the escalator and said that in 2016. And he's just doubled down, made it worse. They're eating our cats and dogs, demonizing these people who are the underpinning of our economy. What we learned were essential workers during COVID. What do you make of what's transpired over the last week, and his comments about, maybe some of these people have been here for a long time and they're doing good work?
It reminds me of, did you ever see like Avenue Q? Did you ever see, or anything like that musical?
I never saw it.
You've seen or like The Lion King on Broadway. You know how they have these puppets? They have these puppeteers who are sort of like holding up puppets in the air. And a lot of times when you see like a live sort of puppet type theater kind of thing, the people will all be wearing black, right? And they'll be holding up sort of these puppets. And it's almost like Trump said, why do we need all of these people in black? We already have the puppets. The puppets are what's important. Let's get rid of all of the people. Why are we paying for all these people in black? I know this is a very bizarre metaphor. I'm making it up as I go. But it's like those people are the ones keeping shit together. Those are the people who are you know what I mean? And so it's like you have this, quote unquote, underclass of people. But as you said, they're the underpinning. They're the ones actually getting the food to us,
and everybody knows that. Like, it's hard for me to believe that that so many people don't know. I mean, even in the whitest communities, these people are there and working. Either they commute or they live there, sometimes with a whole bunch of other people in a terrible situation. I mean, every city in the country knows, and you just make assumptions. I just make racist assumptions, by the way, about who's documented and who's not on, say, a landscaping crew in my suburban town, or at a restaurant, or a construction crew. And they never, by the way, are arresting. ICE is never arresting or questioning the employer or the owner of the company, it would seem. But I don't know. What was my point? That how do you not know that these people are here doing good work? Or do you think somehow that these guys that just mowed your lawn are going out and raping people at night? Like they work all day and they commit crimes all that night.
I mean, I've said this. I think there is an undergirding to all of this, which is that
racism.
I feel, well, yeah, but it's just this idea of like, I should be legally protected from ever being annoyed by anyone.
Right.
As a sort of, as an upwardly mobile white person.
Yes.
And so someone speaking another language at Panera Bread, or kids being loud, or them people wearing things.
I hate loud non-white kids, because it's so much worse than the loud. White kids aren't.
Therefore, maybe I don't want fascism, but on the other hand, they're annoying. So who's to say
they're irritating.
I'll turn my back, and what happens happens.
Yeah, that is such an...
And that to me, that encompasses not just the conservatives, but that encompasses a lot of quote unquote centrists. I think I've said quote unquote 14 times in this interview so far. That includes like centrists too. I was just like, I really don't want fascism.
Oh, you're being generous to liberals. It's a lot of liberals. It's a lot of liberals too that are NIMBYs, or they don't check their bias, or they vote the right way but they say the wrong thing, or they say the right thing and don't vote at all, or they're just irritated. They're annoyed, and don't put a windmill, by the way, in my town either. There's a lot of that around any number of things, not just people that they don't like that are irritating. So very, very well said.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that situation last night when you saw that senator Padilla was handcuffed, pushed down and handcuffed at Kristi Noem's. She seems great and qualified.
Yeah, she seems super cool. I mean, I think, granted, I've never been removed from a room because I was interrupting an interview, but from what a lot of reporters and protesters were posting yesterday, that it's like, you expect that, okay, maybe you're shoved out of the room, but then you're not handcuffed, you're not detained, you're not thrown to the ground. There is 0.000 reason why he had to be face down on the ground. It's like, even if you want to claim the bullshit that he was lunging at her, which he clearly wasn't. This was in a screened federal building that in a room that he had been escorted into. That's what he talked about when I saw him being interviewed. It's like, They opened the door for him and let him into the room. It's not as if he like crashed us like the fucking Kool-Aid man. If there's no reason, even if you wanted him out of the room, you could have taken him out of the room. Yep. Even if you wanted to handcuff him, which is ridiculous and absurd. I think we've all seen people handcuffed while standing. There's no reason for somebody to be prostrate on the floor for you to get a pair of handcuffs. A man in his late 50s, early 60s who just happened to be wearing a polo shirt that says U.S. Senate on it and has identified himself.
Windbreaker, a pullover, I think he called it, with U.S. Senator on it. He identified himself as, I'm Senator Padilla.
Yeah.
She's in his state. I mean, it's not weird. He get an FBI escort apparently to go into the building. Like they had to know he was there. Maybe not. We shouldn't give too much credit to the FBI.
I love that turd who shows up at the very end and blocks the aide from filming, who kind of does that incredibly enraging police tactic. It's like, I've been like filming these people for the last 90 seconds. Like, the cat is out of the bag, buddy.
What do you have to say, and what do you think about plainclothes law enforcement wearing masks? What's that? What's that, America? Or what's that?
I know what we would call it in any other country. I mean, I know people hate the word, but it is fascism. It is authoritarianism. It is the way dictatorships work. It's a secret police. You've heard the term secret police. You've heard the term brown shirts. You've heard the term
stormtroopers.
Stormtrooper. I mean, you heard all these things that were applied to federal troops in Waco, and the Clive and Bundy standoff, and all these fucking freedom fighters who have a problem with actual licensed and name tagged federal employees performing their duties. But somehow we're just all supposed to bite down and swallow just roving gangs of tubby dipshits wearing ice vests, just kidnapping people. We're supposed to be okay with that. And I saw an MMA fighter today put something out, a guy who, like a Trump supporting MMA guy, basically saying like what's going on in LA is ridiculous and this has to stop. Now, of course he's still like, I agree with Trump and A, B, C, D, and E, but in this one area, I think he's a little wrong. But that's a step in the process, and again, it's like the whole farm workers and leisure hotel employees, stuff like that. It's like Trump's a hotel guy. He knows all of this, but he thought he could get more juice out of the rage, and now he's finding out that it turns out that like people who give me money actually need this stuff.
He's learning.
Put a bow on that for you.
No, it's just it's hard to know what he's so dumb and ignorant, and then often I think he convinces himself of a lot of shit, like he was born to be in this position and he's better than other humans and all that. And he's very smart. Sometimes I think he actually believes. I do think he believes a lot of that stuff. So it's hard to know what he knew and what he has convinced himself or others. The last person he talked to convinced himself of believing, but it does seem like he's pulling back on, at least he said it. I mean, somebody's gotten in his ear, the captains of industry, whether it be agriculture or housing and contracting, building or as he mentioned, hotel and leisure. Like somebody said, you get no, there's not going to be any strawberries on the shelf, sir. Like everybody's going to know that the people who do these jobs aren't doing these jobs. Like, no, the kids aren't showing up for school. Like, it's bad, and it's going to affect you. And I'm just not sure what he's worried about. What, a midterm election? His approval
I
rating?
love that idea too. That is like in many cases, these hotels and farms are having to employ the criminals because the workers are no longer there. It's like, it's like, I am working for the cartel currently, but I am hoping that a pool boy position opens up at Bedminster so I can break out of this cartel grind.
Mostly I sneak into people's apartments and rape them at night, but I'm hoping that soon a spot in the field opens so I can work in the hot sun.
I mean, it's not even supposed to convince you. I think, it's everyone always brings up 1984, which of course is
no, go ahead.
Tendacious or whatever.
No, we need to be every day. Talk about it every day.
There's the famous scene in 1984. I don't remember the exact specifics where the guy's being held prisoner and the torturer basically holds up 2 fingers, says, "How many fingers am I holding up?" And he's supposed to, I made a peace sign, and now there's balloons popping up behind me.
Hilarious. I didn't know that happened.
Anyway, but like they say, how many fingers am I holding up? And like you have to say 3, even though it's clearly 2, because the whole point is to tell you that what you see with your eyes doesn't matter. It's what I tell you.
Right.
It's you have to parrot back what I'm saying, not what you observe. And that a lot of it too. It's like these explanations that make no sense to anyone, that are completely contradictory. It doesn't matter. We're just telling you to accept what we want. And the logic of it, the more illogical, the more effective it is in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's reinforcing the idea that we create reality, not you.
Very well said. Very well explained. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about the election there in New York. It was debate number 2 last night, and it seems like it's down, or the top 2. It's ranked choice voting, but the top 2 contenders, at least according to polling, seem to be how do you say his name? Mamdani? Zohran Mamdani?
Mamdani.
And
like the easiest way to think of like mom, like hi mom, and Donnie, like Donnie.
Mamdani.
Mamdani.
And against, who's like 33, against Andrew Cuomo. And Mamdani is very charismatic and likable, and he's got an amazing like social media game and campaign, clearly. But I don't know,
unshakable.
Yeah, I don't know much about him, and so I saw that Cambry, your wife, is out there, campaigning, and he seems pretty popular in New York. Do you think could he win? Could he be the next mayor of New York? This 33-year-old socialist?
He could. I mean, yes, it's going to be, even if he comes out of the primary. Usually in New York City, obviously the Democratic primary is in many ways the election. I mean, unless there's like a Bloomberg or a Giuliani who's sort of a larger-than-life Republican figure. Generally speaking, I think at least this year it's sort of presumed. The Republican nominee is Curtis fucking Sliwa. So I think that whoever wins the primary will sort of be in a catbird seat. But this year could be a little different because Cuomo has already said that he'll run as an independent, and so is Eric Adams going to be running as an independent. I don't know what the hell Eric Adams. Maybe I have misread this entire thing, but I don't know where his voter base is. So, and my hope is that Adams and Cuomo both stay in the race long enough that they cannibalize each other. Because if you're looking for a morally dubious, legally actionable creep with quote unquote swagger, well, then you have 2 choices. Hopefully, but I feel like if Adams got out of the race and then Cuomo was running as an independent, then it's a toss up, then I don't know. I still am kind of mentally preparing for myself for the fact that Cuomo might win, but I feel like it's a victory regardless. I mean, first of all, Mamdani has made a huge name for himself, and not just city politics, but national politics. I think he's a guy for the future. He is young, and he's, Cambry, the reason that Cambry took a job working for him is that we live in his district. And when she ran QED, she had to deal with Zohran a few times, I think for benefit events or community type stuff. And she just found him to be like the real deal. Like not just a good interview, but like actually knows how to like inspire people and rally people. And so she's a real believer. And my wife is not a socialist by any way. You know, I think she, like I, have become a little bit more radicalized in the past 10 years than we were previously, but she's not a socialist. And I don't think I am either. Although now I've been wondering recently.
I don't know. I think these words are, I think these words don't matter.
They're of limited use.
It's like, let's talk about policies. Do you like free buses? What do you think? Or do you want to pay, $600 million more for the police? Which one benefits you? Do you think more? Which one, do you want people actually defending their actual principles or what they think my principles are? Well said. My biggest concern is that if Cuomo wins, we're going to have to hear you mispronounce his name for a few more years. It's fucking unbelievable. You hate that you hate that you more than anybody I've met.
You do. A good liquid you, Cuomo. It just, I think what it is that I grew up hearing, my dad was obsessed with Mario Cuomo. Like he was like, my dad worshipped Mario Cuomo.
Wow.
And so he always said it wrong. And so I think I've just absorbed that. Cuomo. I don't feel like when I grew up, I heard a lot of people saying Cuomo. I thought when I heard it was always Mario Cuomo, but Cuomo. Well, you're right.
Just get it
I
right.
don't want to misgender. If I'm going to call people the way they want to be called, I should say Cuomo.
That's very.
What if I just say fuckface?
He would probably answer to it. He's been called that a few times. All right, man. Well, this was awesome. I really appreciate you stopping by. Anything else? Any other parting? Important points? Anything else that we from this week or from your life or from anything?
I'm waiting to find out whether we get this apartment.
You'll get it.
We've submitted our package to the co-op board. Now we're waiting to hear, and that's pretty much my life right now.
All right. Well, let me know. I happy to give you more character witnessing. Dear board,
thank you, Peter.
Christian is as good as that. You would be lucky to have him living in your building.
All the fart jokes I've heard, this guy's are the most hyper.
Watch his special. I'm sorry, Christian. We watched your special, and now we're denying. We've seen your comedy, and now we're denying you.
Well, that's like a couple times. Cameron's like, "Why don't you run for office?" Like because
I've said
one of my specials. I have an 8-minute bit about how old people shouldn't be allowed to vote. Like maybe that could get in the way.
Thank you very much for joining me, buddy. Always great. Really appreciate you. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. There goes Christian. And now you can just hang up, Christian, because I decided I saw Bill Boyle in the chat, and he's also texting me about Israel. I want to bring Bill Boyle in. There he is. Bill Boyle, everybody.
What's up, folks? How are you?
Second time I just improv'd you into the show.
Yeah, I kind of like it.
And wait, do you want to stay?
Well, this is the first time I've actually seen Bill's face, so I was just going to say hello. Nice to officially meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you as well. I follow your work very not that assiduously.
Someone has to.
This is wonderful.
I appreciate that.
Oh, wonderful.
But no, I am going to depart. But I was just like, I wanted to say a quick hello since we've only ever met in a virtual sense.
Yeah, and in the comments, I would ask for your opinion about Kneecap, the famous Gaelic Irish hip hop band.
I've got to give them more. Obviously, it has a novelty vibe when you first encounter it, and I think I kind of wrote it off a little bit, thinking that it was. But it's like I keep hearing people that because I have not seen the movie. I think that's also why I thought it was a novelty, is because of the movie. But no, I have not given it its.
The movie's very good, actually. The movie's hilarious, and they are complete a-holes, but it's worth it. Yeah.
What is it called? What's the movie?
It's called Kneecap.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
They're like Irish language
Irish
promoters. Yeah, and they promote the language, and they're real traditionalists, and they're in a lot of ways, and they hate the IRA and they hate the Protestant paramilitaries, and they're very sophisticated as marketing and as a artistic adventure, but they're also total clowns, and it's a very kind of fun.
How come
and it embarrasses my
kind of reminds me a little bit of Pussy Riot?
Yeah.
You know what I'd like to see is,
you know what I mean, like Pussy Riot, where it was like I can't tell if this is an art project or a music project, like that kind of thing. But
or just drug addicts. Like it's like a very they're interesting, and it embarrasses the crap out of my 13-year-old son when I'm blasting Gaelic rap driving down the street in D.C. So it's worth it just on that level alone.
How come at any of these protests
absolutely.
you don't see any of those these artists, these musicians like a Tom Morello? He's at the protest, but why doesn't he rip out his guitar and do like an improv, like just loud amplifiers at a protest?
Because no one wants that.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because nobody under the age of 35 wants that.
Or knows who Tom Morello is.
Yeah. Yeah, because rock is a niche genre that does not reach people. Anyway,
yeah.
All right, I'm going to go. I'll see you later. It's nice to meet you, Bill.
Nice to meet you.
Pete, always a pleasure.
Thank you, Christian.
Toodaloo.
I'm glad you guys met. I'm
Bye.
glad you connected.
Cheers.
All right. So you're here and available. So I said, let me talk to you. Everybody loves Bill Boyle. Just got to ask you a couple of foreign policy things. I want to ask. I mean, I'm trying to understand what the hell happened last night. Wrap my head around Israel's attack of Iran. Why, the timing, what we knew, how we're involved, and how this looks. And I also saw your friend Julia Yaffe on Twitter or whatever posting, and I thought this was a really good encapsulation on it. So I guess I'll start here and let you just pick it up. She writes, so for those of you keeping track, Trump says he will end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. Putin tells him to pound sand. The war is now worse than ever. Trump says he'll solve the Gaza war. That war is now worse than ever. Trump tells Bibi Netanyahu not to strike Iran, give him space to negotiate. Bibi strikes Iran 2 days before negotiations. Does it seem like world leaders respect Trump? ? That's Julia's post.
And the answer to that is absolutely not at all. So I will tell you, I know for a fact that State Department people got a notice around 4:00 yesterday saying the attack was coming. DC time. All over DC, people got that notice. So the U.S. clearly knew it was coming, clearly was aware of it. I don't think Israel could necessarily do the extent of the strike they did without some use of U.S. assets. And the Iranians themselves are certainly assuming that's what happened. Because Trump is such a clown, and Yaffe's point about it is great, where he doesn't really know what he's doing. And the administration has cleaned out all the experts or just ignores them in foreign policy and everything else. So you just have this weird sort of like attempts at making policy and at making deals. And there's no follow through. There's no informed decision making happening. It's just little cliques in the administration kind of vying for his attention, for Trump's attention. And then just like every once in a while, there's a little blurt and they come out with a policy. And you just cannot make a deal with Iran or with Russia and Ukraine or with anything else that's complex or, frankly, any trade tariff deal, right? You can't make these deals unless you have a policy machine that turns out information and step-by-step action. That doesn't exist in this administration. And so, and then that ties into the fact that they are completely fucking dishonest about everything and to everybody, in part because they don't even know on Tuesday what the policy of the administration is going to be on Friday.
Right. That's not an exaggeration. And I would argue that not only does the rank and file at the State Department not know what the policy is on Tuesday as it changes, neither does the Secretary of State or the Secretary of the Treasury or the guy who's on a way to a negotiation and the terms of the deal get changed by a tweet.
This administration is like a dead frog where occasionally a little electric jolt comes from Twitter and one of the limbs spasmodically jerks, right? Like that's what this is. This is in policy terms, it's dead. And so what you end up with is a situation where no one in the world trusts the administration, rightfully so. And so everyone assumes the worst. And with Trump being such an obviously maligned figure, that's a fair assumption most of the time. So you have with Israel, Iran, by the way, some other little deets I can give you about what's going on behind the scenes a little bit. Iran stopped delivering any drone components, Shaheds and everything else to Russia this morning.
Why would that? What does that mean?
Well, what it means is that Iran can do the same kind of drone strikes against anywhere it wants to in the Middle East that Ukraine say is doing to Russia. And there's not much, you can't bomb a country out of doing that. If that was possible, Ukraine wouldn't be able to.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still confused. Iran was supplying Russia with drone and drone parts. They've stopped. Hundreds of that. They stopped doing that because they want to use them for themselves, or
of course.
Okay, and then they launch a drone attack, Iran, last night.
So it's a little mixed. They definitely launched missile attacks already. Mm-hmm. There was a claim this morning that the first drone hit Israel today, but that turned out to be BS. But that's coming. That's going to happen. Just
to be clear, though, what you're saying is they've stopped sending weapons to Russia because they're going to use the weapons themselves,
100%,
potentially on Israel.
Yep.
So when you say that people in the State Department knew yesterday at 4:00, I believe you. I believe that the people that you talked to in Washington tell you that. I also believe that you are a secret agent yourself of some agency that nobody even knows about, some kind of shadowy. I don't know.
Yeah. Postal intelligence service.
But it wasn't a surprise attack in terms of, didn't they target the 3 top military leaders and nuclear scientists? Wouldn't they want to keep that pretty quiet? How did State Department people know at 4 p.m.?
Well, it didn't. It was just a warning, an alert that went out across D.C.
Or you found out that, whatever, people found out, you found out that they knew after the strikes occurred. Like, you didn't know that you didn't have information that the strikes were going to occur when they did. It was last night around 8 p.m., I think.
Yeah, East. But they were sending out warnings across D.C. at 4:00 in the afternoon.
Okay.
So
how did they?
Isn't some big secret.
Well, yeah, but you would think it would be, because these guys are sitting in their apartment buildings wherever they are in Tehran, and all of a sudden a fucking missile paints their window.
I mean,
nobody told them.
Well, here's the thing about all that, which is that
ballsy attack.
I don't think anyone expected them to say go after the apartment of the former president of Iran, Rouhani. Right?
Who did they kill? Do you know who they killed? Do we know yet? I heard David Ignatius say the top 3 military commanders. I heard him say
They did. They killed the head of the Revolutionary Guards.
He was in his apartment. He was in his home. And
I don't know where they killed him. I know I was looking. They definitely killed him, probably in his apartment. Yes, and they were. I think it was 3 a.m. Iran time when the attack hit. So
it's crazy that they know where the top military people are. This is not the first time that Israel has done this in the past few years. In Hezbollah or Iran, their intelligence is seemingly.
Yeah, I mean, remember, Iran is fully penetrated by Mossad, fully penetrated. And they have killed people.
I didn't know that.
Nuclear scientists driving to work in the morning. A guy in a motorcycle.
I know that they've had all kinds of successful attacks in the past, but I mean, you say fully penetrated. First of all, that phrase makes me feel unsafe. But second of all, I didn't realize that was the case, that Mossad had their connections so deeply woven within the Iranian.
Yeah. There's lots of people in Iran who are really, they hate their government. So it's not very hard. I saw that. It's not very hard for the Israelis to find people who are sympathetic, and they have the technical means that we've given them and their own technical means. So, but here's the thing about attacking Rouhani in his apartment building. That hits various other. You guys can go on Twitter, Blue Sky, and find pictures of this. It now his apartment and also the 5 around it. So there's no real concern about civilian casualties. Also, it's super personal, right? Rouhani is no longer president. He's not in a position of power. So this is a really kind of nasty, pants down kind of attack on Iran. And there's no reason for Iran not to fully roar ahead with their nuclear program, because it's the only way they'll stop this. And B, there's no reason they wouldn't go after Israel, and Israel is the same way. They don't
have the capability to go after Israel and Israelis the same way. And the reason why they don't is because Israel hits back harder.
Well, no, I mean, but at this point, what do they have to lose? They're getting bombed in Tehran. They don't
power.
Well, they lose power if they don't respond. So this is, by the way, getting into the same sort of cul-de-sac that Russia's in with Ukraine, where the Iranian government is going to have no choice but to respond. And again, because of technological changes with drones, there's no way to stop them from making 500 drones a month and just shooting them at Israel or Israeli assets. And by the way, we think the Houthi problem is bad in Yemen. Iran's got 10,000% more resources to do the same thing in the Persian Gulf and everywhere else.
What about the timing and reason for Israel's attack on Iran? They were not about to launch a nuke. They don't have one. Some people, and it seems that often these attacks occur when Benjamin Netanyahu is in political trouble, and they took a no confidence vote and he just barely won it. Mm-hmm. Why now? Not to mention the other important piece of the timing is Trump's negotiating with Iran. And the Israelis, Netanyahu certainly doesn't like the negotiations. Republican Iran hawks don't like the negotiations. It's worth mentioning that we already made a fucking deal with them that was hard fought, and all kinds of concessions were made. It took a long time, Jon Carroll.
And it was effective. And Trump undid that deal. So it might be worth mentioning. But what about the timing and the reasoning for this attack now? It didn't have to happen. Yeah, the timing for the attack now is that the Israelis don't trust the Trump administration to not make a deal. Trump wants a deal so badly that he was going to make a far worse deal with Iran than the one that he ripped up.
So,
and as far as the Israelis were concerned, they were like, okay.
They torpedoed the deal. Netanyahu literally didn't use torpedoes, but missiled the deal.
Well, yes, in the sense that he saw that Trump was going to literally make a worse deal with Iran than Obama did, because Trump is starting to get desperate to deliver on something. Mm-hmm. And so the Israelis, again, also, and this gets back to where I started, being completely unable to trust the White House, right? Knowing that they're desperate for a deal, knowing they totally lie to anybody whenever they want to, knowing that, Trump said he was a huge supporter of Bibi and Israel, and then just after being in the White House for a month, just started disregarding them. Right? I mean, if you're Bibi, there's a certain grim logic to it. You're like, okay, I supported this guy into the White House and everything helped him win, and now he's blowing me off. And now I have to deal with the problem. And this, again, gets at like the essential problem of being out to lunch as the world superpower is other people just start to say, okay, fuck it. If you're just going to be adrift and not be dependable and do crazy things, fuck it. I'm going to take control locally where I need to protect my nation. I mean, I will tell you, I hate Bibi. I hate him. I think he's awful. But this was not an entirely irrational move on his part. It was not irrational to do this.
For what? For whose interest? For whose interest? Israel's national security?
Sure, because he saw that Trump was going to make a deal that was going to allow Iran to stick to the deal, but get really close to a nuke. Trump was willing to let them continue enriching uranium. Like, that was on the table. So if you're Israel, you're like, okay, Trump's going to make a deal with them, some stupid deal. He's not going to back it up. He's not going to follow it up. And Iran's going to get really close to a nuke.
Let him make the deal and then bomb their enrichment facilities. Like, it doesn't seem like
but he didn't want that deal signed because then the U.S. would have some interest in restraining Israel from destroying that deal.
Makes sense. Yeah. Good answer. Yeah. Good answer. All right. Before I let you go, just weigh in on domestic politics and what we're seeing play out this week. Anything from, obviously it seems like the immigration, the issue around mass deportation, the violence in the streets, the ordering of the National Guard and Marines, the court's involvement, a decision being made at the federal courts, then a circuit court undoing it an hour later. Trump apparently still is in charge of National Guard. The Supreme Court's probably going to give him that continued power. But what do you make of what we've seen last week? And specifically, what are your thoughts around Trump's point last night where he seems to have discovered that they're not all rapists and murderers, that the 99% of them are doing important work. They're essential workers, underpinning of our economy. He seems to have found out that last night and pulling back on some of Stephen Miller's tactics. I mean, when he made that comment, Gavin Newsom posted a picture of, I don't know, Voldemort or somebody like disintegrating, like saying Stephen Miller. This is a picture of Stephen Miller right now. Sorry. And what it means is Stephen Miller's Nazi policies are being pulled back. It would seem or sound like that's what Trump is saying. Who got to him? What do you make of any of it?
I don't believe it. I think they'll go right back to it in a different way for a different reason as soon as they can. I know what they're seeing, by the way. There's a guy named G. Elliott Morris who used to run. He was, when 538 didn't suck, he ran it for Nate Silver. And he's got a website, G. Elliott Morris, I forget what it's called, but go look it up because he tracks polling in a really great way. And what he's been showing in the last week is that Trump's numbers on LA and the rioting and everything else are terrible, and that it's pulling down his overall numbers really badly.
Why does he care about that? Why does he care about polling?
Because Trump knows, like all fascists do, that you need to, if you want to take like ultimate power, you kind of need to do it in a legal way, right? And so he needs to sort of remain popular enough that it just does not become easy for everyone to say fuck you and walk away, right? That he has to be popular enough to hold on to Republican senators and hold on to House members. And what you're seeing is, and that doesn't mean he has to be popular, just popular enough.
Right.
And when you start getting into the 30s, where he's Quinnipiac, which is normally friendly to him.
Shock poll, 38% approval on his immigration.
Exactly. And 38% overall. I mean, it's not good. And people really, they're kind of split a little bit negative on the rioting, but they're decisively negative on using the military, using the Marines and everything else. And so I think they're not stupid. I think they see the polling. I'm sure Tony, whatever the hell his name is, that is his poller, Fabrizio, sure he walks in and goes, hey, this is really bad for us. People do not like it. Now, I will tell you, though, that Trump is always fantasized. His ideation is to be a Putin-style strongman. So that's why I say they're backing up a little bit. Trump is doing his thing, song and dance about maybe this isn't great and whatever. Yeah. But ultimately, he's going to come back to force. And because force is what he believes in. Force is what gives him a boner in the morning. It's what he wants. And so, we could see it here. I mean, they're having the army march on Saturday, tomorrow, here. And like the entire town is on lockdown, and they're putting fences up everywhere, and they're really like puffing their chests out in DC right now.
Is it going to be? Yeah, go ahead.
And I don't think a lot of people are even going to come. I'd be surprised. I mean, we're not seeing it. I'm not, as you know, in my business, I see it when traffic comes. Does Trump and whoever want people to come and line the streets of this parade? Yes.
And it's going to rain and no one wants to come.
It's going to be great. Yeah.
Well, are we going to see images of you standing in front of a tank, or at least your son?
Yeah. I need to get a little bin bag, go do some shopping and then stand in front of a tank. But I don't think there's going to be a lot of protest against it directly.
But there's going to be 1,800 protests across the country. What does that mean? That people all over the country are again in the streets protesting No Kings. It's called No Kings. It's great messaging.
Which is great messaging. I will tell you, I was listening to the Ross Douthat, whose name I never will pronounce correctly.
That's fine.
And Tony Gilroy of Andor fame.
Oh, the writer from the TV show Andor. It was talking to Ross Douthat of the New York Times?
Correct.
Okay.
And it was on the New York Times podcast. And Gilroy had a great point about Andor, and I think it applies to this. He says, it's not coded left or right in the show, because he's saying what fascists do is they attack communities, right? There's a reason most of the French right also was in the resistance, right? Because the Nazis attacked France and the French as in their communities directly. And I think that is what Trump is doing right now. It's getting to the point where, that 90% Trump voting district in Missouri or whatever, where the woman who worked at the diner got grabbed by ICE and the town went apeshit, right? And she got released. They're attacking people where they live in ways that's really personal and really direct. And people don't fucking like it. They see that, and they see a senator getting handcuffed. Even if they don't like that senator, they go, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not how we are. It's not what we do. And I think that there's such a widespread movement happening because people who are not that political, they really don't like that shit. They see it and they go, ugh, no. And so I think that there's 1,500 protests because Trump is created.
The other thing that you mentioned, the tackling Senator Padilla, but the thing that people, I feel like, again, I want to continue. Maybe you'll tell me this is wrong or I should word it differently. I'm less focused on Trump supporters and MAGA Nation than I am on the apathetic, including young folks who aren't paying attention, and anybody else. And the thing that people really don't like to see is cops, much less National Guard, or you can't tell the difference because cops wear fatigues. They all are militarized.
Yeah.
You don't know the difference. Most of us don't know the difference between a Marine, National Guard, and a cop at this point. And they don't like to see the military on the streets at all, much less their gear, their armor. And they also really don't like to see the images that we're seeing. It would be one thing if it was someone in an ICE jacket making arrests, but it is plain clothes men overwhelmingly wearing masks.
Yep.
People don't like to see any of those things. And I feel like that's making the apathetic and the other, that's cutting through on the TikTok.
Yeah.
On the Instagram.
I'll tell you that video that was out yesterday of the 2 white ICE trucks cutting off the driver in LA, ramming him, dragging him out of his car.
I did not see this, but my band White Ice is playing this Friday. I should mention. It reminds me.
Yeah. So you should be Trump rally with that name.
What is this? I want to find this video.
So it's this video of these 2 white ICE trucks are unmarked. Mm-hmm. They cut this car off. They ram it. They drag everybody out and then realize that and shoot tear gas. I mean, they go to town. And then it turns out nobody in the car was illegal. And then they literally just ditch the scene before the LAPD shows up and says, what the fuck is going on here? And so now LAPD is trying to investigate ICE, saying you just basically attacked people in the street. And ICE, of course, is claiming, the guy hit somebody. And they're like, there's no record of this ever happening. And the reason I brought that up is that a lot of my conservative friends who are not MAGA people, but they're conservative and tend to they tend to say the rioters are terrible and bad. That meme is going around my conservative friends who are going, what the fuck is obviously ICE is totally out of control here. Totally out of control. They're just ramming cars and then going, oopsie daisy, and then just ditching. And that I think is the kind of thing that breaks through, or the 4th grade kid being loaded into a van. That stuff breaks through to regular people. And the thing that I tell people who are sort of apathetic or are sort of well, the protests are bad, if they can do that to them, they can do it to you. And I think that's what's breaking through to regular people. Yeah. That's the aftermath, I think.
I'm showing video if people are listening of the report that Bill is talking about, but yeah, it's hard to keep track of this stuff. It's really hard to keep.
So that one has broken through to conservatives because it's so egregious. It's so crazy. And I think, again, these things always generate their counter reaction. And by the way, the counter reaction is that the ICE is about to get their budget's about to go from $8 billion to $165 billion if they get all their money. So what you're seeing now is just the thin edge of the wedge of how crazy this could get. And it's going to 165 million.
Billion? You said million?
Billion, excuse me.
Billion?
That's the number.
165 billion. Okay. Is there any truth to the rumors that ICE or any government law enforcement agency is hiring extremists, former Proud Boys, J6ers, people who are
I'm sure they are. I don't know for a fact, but why wouldn't they?
I don't know. I'm not saying.
They want people who
I understand.
do what they want them to do.
I understand. I'm just looking for journalism. I'm just looking for evidence that we know that they are either hiring or recruiting people with certain records and affiliations with certain organizations.
I'll find out.
All right.
Yeah, I'll find out. I would guarantee you that's true. But I've never thought about it till you just mentioned it. But I'll find out, and I would bet you I will, within a day, get back to you and say yes, they're doing it because remember it's hard to find people who want to do this job.
Yeah, right? That's why. What? Just going back to the mask thing, real quick. What is that? What is that? There's so many parallels to regimes of the past. But the mask on the plainclothes officer, I only heard this once, and I hate to mention it. But it's some guy pretended to be a federal officer and sexually attacked or even raped a woman. Anybody could just throw on a flak jacket and a mask and a fake badge. It's that's why law enforcement wears uniforms. There's a reason and a need for undercover police officers, plainclothes police officers. I'm glad they infiltrate what they used to, at least, right, and not recruit from right-wing extremist groups. But this is not it. This is not taking people off of their job sites while they're working.
But this is like black and tan stuff in Ireland back in the day.
I don't know what that is. So
they were the irregular troops the British brought in to try to end the Irish Rebellion, and it was the same kind of thing. They were finding guys who couldn't get work. They were finding guys who didn't fit in. They were pulling people like misdemeanor criminals into it because they couldn't find people to do it. And the masks, I should probably put on my Blue Sky thing some pictures I took in the first Trump administration, where that's where it started. And, National Guardsmen wearing masks in DC. And I asked some of the National Guardsmen then, why are you wearing a mask? Like, what's the story with that? And what they were told is that if you leave your face exposed, Antifa will dox your family and attack them at home.
Well, good. I mean, not attack them, but like I don't mind doxing. I don't mind someone getting a stormtrooper getting doxed. But
think about it. These were regular National Guard guys who were not themselves extremists in any way, but they had been fed this. It was a bullshit thing. People weren't doing it, but they create the paranoia and fear within these troops by saying that you're going to get attacked, your wife's going to be in danger, or whatever.
Yeah,
and that's the masks are specifically. Most of the guys are wearing them because they have been told that they're in danger themselves. So fascist propaganda without any question. And that's why they're wearing the masks. Now, I will tell you again that the masks are an incredibly stupid idea. The tactical gear is incredibly dumb.
Why?
Because it's what you said before. People see that and go, what the fuck? Like, there's troops on our streets.
The message that it sends and the fear that it creates is done on purpose, but it's politically or it's practically bad for the regime.
That's right. That's right.
Imperial forces.
It creates more of a reaction than it solves.
Not well calculated. They're not playing the long game, it would seem.
No, it's Stephen Miller. He's a weird clown who has these obsessions that are playing out in our policy because Trump basically does whatever he tells him to do. This is President Miller. This is not President Trump so much.
What do you make of the Democratic reaction from AOC, Senator Padilla, to specifically Gavin Newsom and their reactions to all this over the past week? Anybody that's an elected Democrat, what do you make of their reactions? Yesterday, all the House members walked over to the Senate. They wanted a word with Senator John Thune, the majority leader, over what happened with Senator Padilla. So did certainly a lot of, most Democratic senators are outspoken about this. There's been some strongly worded letters written. But what do you think of Gavin or anyone else? I call him Gavin.
This is all turned into
the
Rehabilitate Gavin Newsom tour, because the Trump people are just giving him all these opportunities to look.
How's he doing?
Presidential. Well, I mean, his flirtation with MAGA earlier this year, I was like, fuck this guy. He's never going to be president. But he's handling it the correct way right now. He's basically, when Homan, the fake leader of ICE, said, "Oh, we're going to go arrest him," Newsom was like, "Fuck you, give it a shot, do it, arrest me," because he knows that makes him president probably in 2028, right? Like, so Newsom's handling it the correct way, not backing down, basically saying "fuck you," right? AOC is doing a great job at this, like a great job. And again, I mentioned my conservative friends before. Tons of conservatives now that I know are going, man, I don't agree with AOC, but she's killing it. She's killing it. So AOC, great. Walking over to Thune, by the way, I'm glad that the House members did that. But really what they should have done when they went to the Senate, and Thune did not meet them, obviously. They should be pointing out very clearly that the reason the Republican senators won't address them, meet them, talk about it in public is because they're terrified. They need to start talking. Everyone talks about how, the Democrats are so weak. You know who's really weak? The fucking Republican caucus in the House and Senate.
Yeah.
They are terrified of Trump. And I think that needs to be said all the time, more and more, because that's the reality of our problem. Our problem is Democrats lost the election. They don't have the House. They don't have the Senate. They don't have the White House. There's very limited things they can do. So people bitching about Democrats endlessly are bitching about the party that's not our problem right now. Our problem is Republicans are so weak and they're so terrified of Trump, and they're so willing to just, Marco Rubio, who used to be an enormous supporter of the State Department and PEPFAR and USAID and everything else. And Marco Rubio is overseeing in the next few days one of the biggest rifts that's going to happen in the government at the State Department.
What?
They're going to riff. They're going to cut a ton of people from the State Department very soon.
Riff, that means cut?
Right. Yeah, I forget what it means, like what the acronym means, but it means to cut people. And they're going to reduction in force. Sorry. So they're going to do a riff soon, and it's going to be disastrous. Right as, by the way, you're going to get rid of a ton of people at the State Department. Right as all of our foreign policy problems become far more complicated with the strike in Iran.
How will our foreign policy problems become more complicated with the strike in Iran?
Because there's no prospect for peace in the Middle East. None. And Iran is going to go way out of their way to.
Why is that a problem for us? Someone said that on Facebook this morning when I was posting about how weak Trump
trade oil.
Right. Oil. If only like Tom Rick said after 9/11 that the way to fight this violence in those countries is to create renewable energies. We'll never need oil again. He said that in like 2001. And so everybody believes that that's a great foreign policy tactic, is to create renewable energy and sell it to the world. Now we're actually destroying all the investments in renewable energy.
Well, exactly. I mean, Trump makes everything worse, basically. And remember that what happens in the Middle East doesn't just get contained in the Middle East.
The price of oil, this is one of your, a lot of the, I think people are talking about it's got to get worse before it gets better. Well, if the price of a barrel of oil goes up as a result of this war, that's going to hurt all Americans, and prices, it's just going to contribute to prices going up. I mean, what else could you do to hurt the economy besides deporting the people who are the underpinning of the economy? Starting a trade war, getting rid of people's health insurance. Well, that won't take effect for a couple of years.
Getting rid of the IRA Act, which will then killing off
investments
and gains in manufacturing we've had,
and then raising the price of energy.
That's right. And I'll tell you, the things that happen, in the Middle East don't stay in the Middle East. And I'll give you a great example. If Trump had not ripped up Obama's deal with Iran, nuclear deal with Iran would be very unlikely to be openly supporting Russia in its war in Ukraine.
That's a great point.
Which means that tons of those drones, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of drones that Russia's been able to use against Ukraine would not have been delivered. Right? So these things are all interlocked.
Yeah.
And that's why when you kill the State Department and you rip up deals and have this spasmodic approach to everything, then things just get harder. Everything gets harder. You'll have problems in relations in South America because you totally fucked up the Middle East. Right? And that gets at the ultimate thing about all of this. Complexity is something you have to deal with.
Always. That's what governing is. That's what governing has always been. Complexity.
And Trumpism is just a rejection of dealing with complexity and the sugar high that you get by just trashing everything that mitigates and slows down and makes you have to think.
Sugar high is not a real thing. That's fake. So you should use another, but I get the point. Caffeine, cocaine high, coke high, Ritalin.
Well, no. So no, I have to, calling it a sugar high. The whole point is it's fake.
Right. Well done. Well played, Boyle.
Yeah. I have my moments.
And, everything that has steel in it is going up too. I just saw major car part company just went belly up, filed for bankruptcy because they can't afford what these trade policies are creating. I mean, it's happening.
I'll give you a great example. One of our biggest problems in the United States is housing. Housing supply. And DC housing is incredibly expensive, so you can spend a lot of money building it because people need it and they pay a lot for it. 3 large projects in DC right now, 2 not publicly, 1 publicly, have been canceled in the last 3 months because of the rise in prices because of tariffs. So you say tariffs, so what's the big deal? It's 10%, but the downstream effects become gigantic. People are homeless, will be quite literally homeless because you fucked around on tariffs. And those 2 things are directly connected, just not obvious to the naked eye.
I learned a lot. I'm glad you were here. I appreciate you being available. I've got to get on the road. Thank you very much for joining me today.
I'm going to go take a shower. See you later.
All right. There he goes. He's going to take a shower, everybody. I'm glad that we know that. I'm going to visualize that for a while. Thanks to everybody who joined me live. I appreciate that. If you're watching live, it was a bonus Boyle bonus. Christian Finnegan, thank you very much for joining me. And that is all I have for you today. I'm headed out for the night, headed up north, and then I will be at the rally tomorrow. I'll cover it. I'll be covering it. I'm going to get a long pole, put my camera on it, so I can get some great shots in Rockland County. I hope that you'll be at one of the rallies, because there's like 2,000 of them around the country. So that is all I've got for you today. Thank you very much for stopping by and for supporting my work, which is talking to the smartest people I can find and making sense of things on this journey we're on together. All right. Peace and love, everybody. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.